turns and steep vectors of contradictory velocities, which would necessarily split a celestial body in two under certain gravitic conditions, and should certainly lead to the sun crashing into any object orbiting around it during only one portion of a revolution, depending on the velocity of the star and a specific circumstantial velocity of the satellite body in question. Einstein crafted a lot of nifty numbers, much like his Newtonian predecessor, in order to set up a theory where calculations will agree with calculations, yet the truth or foundational validity of the calculations never dare be questioned, nor do they seem to need to be questioned or proved, in theoretical physics land, where theorems are always true so long as they're presented properly, and the facts are of no consequence, especially if the facts contradict the theorem. Heliocentric/Big Bang theoretical physics has become a bygone, mathematically sound, theoretically possible matrix of reality, which amounted to a well-thought-out, mathematically plausible display of scientifical bravado and posturing, which succeeded in its goal of wooing the minds of contemporaneous theoretical physicists and mathematicians into blindly following it. You can take a look at the American Dental Association getting all 9 out of 10 dentists to agree that fluoride is good for your teeth as an example of how this herd mentality works in science. Helios, or the sun, or the Greek sun god, Helios, had created a set of theoretical laws which seemed to adequately explain many of the mysteries left hanging around for hundreds of years since the Newtonian theoretical physics had captured the fanciful imaginations of the gullible scientists who love to pass tests and get funding in order to justify the fortune they've spent becoming bona fide card-carrying scientists, many of which wouldn't know physical reality if physical reality bit their fucking nose off. Sorry about that. I've often wondered what the frame of reference is on a galactic scale, and how does that relate to us here on Earth? I realize the standard canned response is we don't feel the galactic frame of reference since we're all moving at the same speed as the galaxy, but that doesn't answer the question, now does it? Let me give you an example, and I'll try to use some of these animations you're viewing, which hopefully by now you've figured out are compressed orbital patterns, and I'll give you the specifics of what they represent. But compressed in a sense that this particular planet only has 4 months in a year, and only 240 years in a solar year, etc. The point is, our alleged solar system, which doesn't exist, would be far more complex and contradictory than this example. However, I went to great lengths in this example to remain accurate to the form, but in order to show how orbital motion is simply not accounted for by the theory of gravity, and I believe this is made abundantly clear when you view the moon by itself, following a seemingly nonsensical path through space, which only makes some degree of sense when you add the sun and planet into the picture. However, that is only an optical illusion. It doesn't make sense in reality, could never occur in reality. The moon by itself in the animation is sufficient to document that gravity could not possibly cause objects to accelerate, decelerate, make nearly perfect right-angle turns without decelerating, travel many, many times faster through space, with the motion of the galaxy as the frame of reference, for example, traveling faster through space than its celestial host, for one example, traveling in the same direction as its celestial host, while the host would be compelled on its tangent round the galactic center towards the satellite body, somehow repels the satellite body or orbiting body from crashing directly into the sun. We can no longer accept Newtonian physics as partially correct because his system was devoid of electromagnetism in the first place, but the entire system was stationary and makes absolutely no sense when the system is put into motion, and relativity does not solve the issue. Now that the sun is mobile, and so is the point which it supposedly orbits, Newtonian physics goes out the window, as gravity cannot account for any of the phenomenon proposed by modern physics. Is it the motion of the galaxy which is used to be the constant zero or frame of reference, or is the still void of infinite space-time, which is used to point to zero, or the zero frame of reference, or is the spinning Earth, which we stand upon, used as the zero, frame of reference? I believe that the still void of space-time, which the galaxy traverses through, should be considered the 0 point or ultimate frame of reference, but it never is. Now, it is of course a moot point, since the world is flat and stationary, and hence the galaxies are totally nonsensical in terms of terrestrial motion in any discussion, causing this entire now defunct theory of the Big Bang to seem completely ridiculous, which it is. The theoretical phantom alluded to in zetetic astronomy, which has finally reared its ugly head to the world in the form of all theoretical physics and models of our universe, are all back to square zero. We're back to the Big Bang, square one, and there is certainly an alternate answer to the questions, where did it all begin, which I've gone into detail during several of my videos. This particular video was created to scrutinize, finally, the galaxy Fantasyland, which is a compressed, exaggerated version of the Milky Way galaxy, which is intended to provide some insight in terms of how celestial bodies orbit around the not stationary system, and how Newtonian, quote, gravity stacks up to the observations, or contrarily, how it does not stack up to the observations. This is a graphic representation of a galaxy much like our own, but with a few differences. One thing the two have in common is they are both hypothetical places in a galaxy far, far away. So far away it doesn't even exist, just like all the other galaxies don't exist. That's how far away they are. But this hypothetical galaxy has only one star and one planet with one moon, to keep things simple. There are only 4 months in a year, and nowhere near 26,000 years in a galactic or solar year. This graphic representation is not intended to be to scale, as such a thing would be rather an incoherent pile of rubbish, either way you slice it. If you could somehow fit that galaxy on the screen, then the Earth would be microscopic to scale and demonstrably useless. On the other hand, if you could get the Earth to a visible, workable size, then the galaxy itself would be many light years larger than the screen, even to scale. So the whole thing is a mess if you try to do it to scale, so we're left with one of two choices. A, we can just shelve the whole thing and try to find a monitor the size of a galaxy. B, we can use scaled-down models with exaggerated bodies in order to depict certain premises or ideas, or demonstrate hypotheses we wish to test or simply scrutinize. So, in other words, when you see the moon crashing into the sun in this animation, in real life the moon would theoretically be plenty far away from the sun to avoid crashing into it, and this is just the issue of an exaggerated scale of objects being visible and graphed out in a 2D representation of a supposedly 4D phenomenon, with time being the fourth dimension, in the traveling galaxy scenario, which is false and has been thoroughly debunked. When I was young and enjoyed setting up dominoes only to give the first one a good nudge and watch the rest come tumbling down, so too I enjoy making working models of hypothetical galaxies similar to our own in many ways, so that we can watch certain dominoes fall which would otherwise remain pristine in a sense, yet gnawing away at our curiosity. If only subconsciously, in this galaxy, we'll call it Fantasyland, we can scrutinize how certain objects will behave when you have a galactic center hurling through space, spinning counterclockwise or anti-clockwise for you Brits out there. I've always been rather partial to things that go clockwise and have been rather anti-clockwise secretly my whole life. So at any rate, the galaxy Fantasyland is spinning anti-clockwise, bastard, traveling through the never-ending void many times faster than any of the parts which comprise the galaxy called Fantasyland. This is an important point to keep in mind during this animation. The larger an item is, the faster it must be traveling, since we are limited to a monitor which is much smaller than a galaxy. I could only find a Samsung Galaxy which is totally not as large as a galaxy, to be sure, go figure. We must compress things down and lay out a couple of points. The larger items, for example, the giant ellipse representing the galaxy, or the galactic center. The larger items are moving faster, but are represented by moving much more slowly. The smaller items are moving much closer to real time as compared to the larger, slower objects, but are still much smaller than the objects which they represent. Can you believe they don't even have a planet-sized or even a moon-sized monitors? Jeez. And they say technology makes leaps and bounds, but by the way, did I miss Windows 8 and 9, or did they just move straight on to 10? I wonder if 10 will support galaxy-sized monitors, just as a side note there. Anyway, I'm not funny, I know. This animation is intended to show how orbital motion is simply impossible given the rigid laws of gravity in Newtonian and Einsteinian physics. Warping space-time and falling apples are observations and theorem of the past. Now that we have the ability to chart out how the spherical Earth, upon which we supposedly dwell, should behave in a galaxy that is hurling through space around a sun that is orbiting the center of the galaxy, with a moon that is orbiting our planet. Until recently, I had never seen such an animation, so I figured I'd give it a go. There was probably an easier way to do this whole thing, but I took the way which took me several days, many fuck-ups, and starting from scratch, which gave me a great deal of experience in building animations in Flash, and also gave me a good lesson in the potential sizes of monitors. By the way, no monitor lizards are galaxy-sized either. No monitor lizards were harmed in the making of this film. Can you guess what these seemingly random, chaotic lines represent?